Oh, wait. Wasn't she a great big fat person?
Oh, yes. Oh, God. Yes. Welcome back to Is It Still Good? This is the show where we take our rose colored glasses, we fire them out of a gun into drug addled people on the streets with no regard for the market around us. We are unable to find the glasses after that. And it's so, with the eyes that remain, that we are forced to go to Florence and hang out with some art and shit for a while. And we have to ask ourselves if all these things from our youth are actually still good. We are two grown up film students. We hate growing up. I'm Bear Kennedy. I am in Denver. I have moved to the mountains just to blend in because of my beard. And joining me today, as always,
Andrew Carter in Los Angeles. We have some San Bernardino mountains nearby. I am not in them. But what
understood.
prompted the move to the mountains besides the beard?
The COVID, I don't know if you're aware, but that COVID is still a problem.
What?
So yeah, I know. I hope you were sitting down, but figured since me and Jackie are working from home anyway, winter in Chicago is a big pain in the penis. We figured we would move somewhere where the winters are actually fun. So
Yeah,
already
makes sense.
gotten 5 days of snowboarding in here in about
Fuck, that's
been
I'm
here since
jealous.
Saturday. So yeah,
Wow.
meanwhile, like I'm getting texts on my building text thread about like doors being frozen shut and all kinds of horrible shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah, due to
You left at the right time.
the abundance of snow and bad temperatures back home. So made the
Well,
right
this
choice.
winter also just feels uniquely terrible. Even
It
like
does.
Texas and just the record low temperatures and the
Yeah.
you know the
Like
the
I'm
being
complaining like
without it's crazy. Being
yeah,
without heat and electricity, that's fucked.
the Texas shit is extremely disheartening. That is not I don't know. We will not make this a political episode, but it's bullshit that we live in this country that's supposedly the richest ever, and you got people in
Yeah,
Texas literally like
I
freezing to
agree.
death. That is
It's bullshit.
terrible. Yeah, not great. Tell you what is also not great: Saving Silverman.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So this week we are doing a weekend at the movies 20 years ago. So we came up with this idea to do counter programming episodes. So we revisit not one but two movies in an episode that opened on the same weekend 20 years ago in 2001, and we kind of explore counter programming that the studios came up with, as well as just what audiences went to go see on the weekends. And yeah, let's start with Saving Silverman. Honestly, it might be the worst movie I've ever seen. If it's definitely
um,
one of the worst I've ever seen, no question, and one of the worst ever made. But
yeah,
it's awful. And I
yes.
it's I mean it's the demographic for that movie is eighth grade boys, and
Mm-hmm.
that's precisely when I saw it for the first time. And I think that I liked it because I was told to. The friends were, oh,
Yeah,
that's so funny. And when you're a kid, you don't really have a backbone. You just want to fit in.
yeah.
And when you're told to like something because someone else likes it who you think is cool, then yeah, you're just gonna like it.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt about it as a kid.
That makes sense. And just to double back, so the weekend we're going into is, I believe, was this a February
It was
weekend?
February 9th, 2001. So we're a
Okay.
few weeks past it in terms of the actual anniversary, but we were just looking at big movies that we feel like people remember or would remember.
Yeah.
And the fact that Saving Silverman, and so this week we're doing Saving Silverman and Hannibal. And the fact that they opened on the same fucking weekend is just like
Yeah, it's really
hilarious to
weird.
me.
Like I
Yeah.
Saving Silverman is in the correct release spot. This is probably either 1 week it's right around when the Oscars are, like beginning of February usually, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like that's the
But in
dumping ground.
2001 they were in March. They didn't
Were
move
they
to
really?
February till later, and for the longest time they were always in March.
Okay, interesting. Because this would be after the cutoff for that, because usually the cutoff is released before December 31st, right? Like it's
Usually,
unless I'm
yeah.
totally wrong.
No, this year's different because of COVID, but yes,
Yeah.
usually it's the calendar year. It's December 31st.
So you get a lot of shit that just gets dumped in January, February, really leading up to like last week of March, kind of spring break. And I think that's inched earlier and earlier as like, you know, the official start of the blockbuster season. But typically you get some stuff that just gets dumped, and Saving Silverman to be released early February is perfect. Right where that movie should be released. I love movies that come out in January, February. Sometimes you get great little horror movies, like oddball stuff that doesn't really fit into like the big kind of blockbuster films. I think we were maybe talking about this on a previous show, but Get Out was a February release.
Yeah, Get Out was late February of 2017, and that's one of the best movies of the last 10 years.
So it's not a guarantee that the movie's going to be bad if it gets kind of slated into
No, not at all. Not at all. And Get Out survived the rest of the year all the way through award season. Like, it had the momentum because it was that good. And we talked about Fargo earlier on the show. That was released in March of 96.
That's
Same
fucking
thing.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like the death knell for a movie to get released in early in the year. It's usually bad if a movie's slated to be released in the fall and gets pushed into early the next year. That usually means it's gonna suck. But yeah, Hannibal versus Saving Silverman is a very interesting weekend ticket. So I'm gonna guess you saw Saving Silverman in the theater as I did as a young.
I did not actually. I saw it on DVD. I had a friend called Colin Ramsey who was obsessed with that movie and was like, "You got to watch it." Like Jack, he would always quote it. And here's the thing: Jack Black and Steve Zahn are great, like actors. They're both really good actors and really fucking funny. But this movie is just not funny. Like nothing is funny. It makes no sense. Nothing that the characters do is like. Obviously, there's such a thing as suspending your disbelief for movies, but holy shit, nothing in this movie makes any sense.
Well, I don't know that I'm ready to bestow great actor upon Steve Zahn or Jack Black.
I am. They're great.
I do kind of like Steve Zahn, but I feel like I don't have a good reason for that. What do you like him in? Like this movie, National Security.
Rescue Dawn with Christian Bale. Werner Herzog. He's in that. And he's in that? Dude. Yeah, dude, he's like a secret weapon. A bunch of actors. I'm serious. Like a bunch of actors are like, "Oh, Steve Zahn's great." And I'm like, but yeah, he's known for National Security and Saving Silverman and like really bad, dumb comedies.
Broad comedy.
Right. Yeah. But he's a really good actor. And he's also he's just unique. Like his cadence is interesting, and like, you know, he's just an interesting guy.
Is he Canadian?
But I don't think so.
He's a Canadian affect.
I don't think. No, I feel like it's kind of like, I don't know. It just sounds American to me.
I am not ready to endorse that take that Steve Zahn is a good actor, but I find that very interesting that at least among his peers, he's well liked.
Oh, among his peers, he's very like respected, which it took me, when I first heard that, I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. And then I saw Rescue Dawn and I was like, oh, wow, he's really fucking good. And I feel like he's poised for some type of, I don't want to say comeback, but some type of like renaissance. I feel like I've read in like the trades sometimes recently, like I see his name attached to movies that are like, you know, with good talent attached. And I think, oh, wow, he's definitely going to come out in some of these things and people are going to take notice. Not that they haven't. That's what's so fucking stupid about this business. Like, take notice. The guy's in his 50s. Like, he's been doing this forever. Like, what notice does he need? You know? But yeah, as I was watching this movie, I was like, nothing in it makes any fucking sense. Not only, like, you might think, oh, you're talking about the kidnapping plot. I mean, literally everything from the beginning. Like, the fact that he goes, like, why do Darren and Judith, why are they together? Like, it makes no sense. And then they try and give those boneheaded reasons later on. Like, oh, I was with a guy who was risky and Darren's not. Give me a fucking break. And why would anyone be with someone who is that for Darren's perspective, if she's that horrible to him and to his friends, what backbone do you have? It was just all so broad and cartoonish. It was lowest common denominator humor. Again, the demographic is 8th grade boys, and they nailed that demographic. Like that is
okay. So yeah, I agree with everything you just said. Did you like this when you saw it as a kid?
That's the thing. Yeah, I was never obsessed with it, but I was like, oh yeah, funny, huh? Like we'd watch it on DVD at Colin's house, and that was kind of it. But no, I wasn't like. I think it took me a little while, but it wasn't until probably like high school when my dorm parent had a bunch of DVDs, and like I borrowed Dazed and Confused and Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, like,
and
all
Saving
within, like, yeah, no. But like when I was a freshman in high school, I borrowed all those movies and like thought they were awesome. And that's when I started to realize, oh, these are, and like Kill Bill, like, oh, these are good movies, not just movies that I like. And I think for the longest time, I liked what I liked, but I didn't know a good movie until I guess later. But then again, when I was really young, I loved Jurassic Park and Toy Story and Jaws, and those are all masterpieces. So
I agree. Some of that stuff like sneaks through though, just regardless of your ability to have taste, because like I feel like if you're really into movies, like you do have a point where you become aware of what a good movie is, like you did. Like I did too, like when I was like 14 or so.
Yeah, I was 14, right? 14.
Yeah, and never underestimate how bad people's taste can be.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know. In my experience, if I meet someone and they like instantly describe themselves as a movie guy, I know I'm going to be in for a bad time. Like they're going to probably start dropping some stuff. There's no way it's going to be anything pre-1990 unless it's like The Godfather.
Do you ever get the thing?
It's going to be brutal taste.
Yeah. Do you ever get the thing from your parents, like, because we love movies? You're he like, oh, this is, like if they have a friend who're like, oh, and Richard loves movies, and then like. Yeah. The guy comes over and talks to you like, oh, I love the movies. Do you ever see it? And then he throws something out at you and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
You ever see Spider-Man?
Yeah. And like, and look, I love Spider-Man, but it's like, all right, like.
Yeah. I've been that parent situation. Yeah. Like,
yeah,
I know that like movie snobs get a bad rap sometimes, but there are times when I just want to say to your average guy, like, either name me one Eisenstein movie or shut the fuck up.
Eisenstein.
Yeah, like get the fuck out of my face. Don't tell me you love movies and you've never seen anything pre-1993.
Right. Yeah, don't tell me you love movies and you don't, and then you don't know who Kurosawa is. That was always the thing of like whenever
That's your taste question?
That sounds very pretentious and snobby, but like that was always really interesting to me to learn when someone really liked movies. And then they had, because I didn't learn about Kurosawa or Fellini or Antonioni or anybody, Bergman, until freshman year of college.
Oh, that's late.
I was late, yeah, because I never, I didn't, I don't think my parents were there. I mean, they're not big movie buffs either, but so I don't think they were quite aware of it. And I was like the movie guy in my town and of my friends. And I didn't, and no one, who else was going to tell me but me, and I didn't know about them. So when I got to college, my friend Adam Rosenfeld, still one of my best friends to this day, he educated me. He actually educated me before film school did on these people.
Yeah.
And I will forever be indebted to him for that, because I learned more about those directors from him than I did in film history classes, which they did bring them up.
Yeah.
I feel like we spent like 30 minutes on Antonioni or something, which is like insane to me. And we spent, I think, a full session on Bergman, but
a lot of Bergman.
I think it was all about, what'd you say?
A lot of Bergman in film school.
But I feel like the class I took, the history of film, I think 1950s to present, or maybe it was 1949 to what, before 1950. I feel like we spent like one class session on Bergman, but it was really the only thing we talked about was Persona.
Yeah, I remember that, because Persona is one of the weirder movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it was really weird. I didn't love it.
I liked it, but I was very disturbed by it. And I owned that the Criterion of the Seventh Seal, which I liked, I loved. And I was like, that's really cool. Yeah.
The Seventh Seal's in my top 10 of all time. And
that's an interesting pick. I like that movie.
We didn't even learn about that in film school, but then I forget how I stumbled upon it, or maybe Adam told me about it, but just reading the plot of that movie, I was like, I got to see this, because that was at a time when I was like going through my religious, not crisis, because I was never like it's not like I was ever a deep believer and then was like, oh God, none of this is real. It was more like I was just trying really hard to understand it all. And the Seventh Seal, I saw it when I was 20, and it just was the perfect time to see it.
Nice.
And it always deeply affected me. I haven't seen it in a few years, but man, that movie is. And what I love about it so much is that it's entertaining. It's not just dense and difficult. It's also really entertaining, which is awesome. Rare.
But nothing about the Seventh Seal prepares you for how fucking weird Persona is.
No,
like that is almost a novelty strange movie. It's one I like, but I
like it. I like Seventh Seal. I don't like Persona. But...
I like Persona, but that was one of a handful that I didn't get exposed to till film school that really stuck around with me. I was like, oh, that was strange. But I like strange.
It's funny that we're talking about these movies and then somehow we're going to relate it back to Saving Silverman.
I was just thinking, like, how do I get back to fucking Saving Silverman? So I saw this in the theater. I remember going to see it in the theater. Loved it. Loved this movie.
Yeah.
Like, all about it. Thought it was so funny. Saw it with my friends. I remember seeing it at the AMC in Lombard.
Right.
I remember all the Hannibal shit in the lobby. I remember wanting to see Hannibal, having like never seen Silence of the Lambs, but of course it's rated R, so we couldn't do it. So that we ended up.
There's no chance. We were 12 when it came out.
I owned this DVD. I like, my parents didn't want me to have illicit shit, as we've talked about on the show before, so I had to like seek out the PG.
So you had the unrated version?
No, I had the PG-13 one, which was actually hard to find.
It was harder, because that was around the time the early 2000s was like unrated was being pushed strictly for DVD sales.
Yeah, and the only thing I remember different between the unrated and the PG-13, and I was trying to research to find out why there was an unrated cut of this. I got nowhere.
There's nothing. There's no reason.
I have no idea why.
I remember one specific thing. Maybe it's the same thing you do.
The only thing I remember that was different is in that scene where they take all the pictures to make it look like Darren's cheating. There was like those two girls they're with who are like call girls just had their boobs out.
Yeah, they were topless. I remember actually. Okay, so it's two things. I remember that, but the line when Jack Black is revealing that to Steve Zahn that he's gay. And he's like, he names a few things, and he's like, and the reason I'm gay is because of this and because of this, and then he says, and the fact that I like suck in, and then on the PG-13, he's like, what? You've done that? But in the unrated, he says the fact that I like sucking dick, like just straight up like that. And I remember like that was really, it's only those two differences.
That is crazy because like, okay, think about how you would plan to produce this movie. Like if that's in the script,
dude,
like
Neil
I like sucking
Moritz
dick.
Produced it.
Yeah,
he's a prolific producer.
Yeah, all kinds of shit. What happened? Did you lose a bet here?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't fucking know. Like, dude, he produced fucking Fast and the Furious movies. Like, he's a big deal. And like, why this? Like, that's what
I just can't think. Like, thinking of how production works. If that's in the script, I like sucking dick isn't that big. You could get that into a PG-13. I don't think that's a big deal. The nudity, that's going to push you into an R. And that's like the only thing that pushes you into an R.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's a fuck in this movie.
No, I don't think there is either. I don't remember one in the unrated.
I don't remember one in the unrated. And that's just very weird to me that you would have nudity in that scene and then also have the scene in the PG-13 movie that's the exact same scene, no nudity.
Yeah.
Like, did you reshoot
Clearly
it? Like,
just,
what the fuck?
They probably, what I'm guessing is either the studio said to them, shoot topless for the unrated DVD, or they were like figuring out what rating they were going to get. Like they weren't sure if it was going to be an R or a PG-13 when they were shooting.
So this is maybe the first thing we've done on the show where I know I loved this as a kid, and I'm so fucking baffled by my past self. I cannot even deal with it. I thought about it very deeply, and then I did other shit. I wanted to get in contact with the editor of this movie because most of what I thought about when I was watching this was how did they leave any scene in?
Yeah,
like this is a movie where like if you saw the assembly of it, you would start chopping shit and you would end up with no movie. You would end up with just credits.
You're going to be shocked when you hear who the editor is, because she's a good editor.
I've already forgotten. I did look it up, but I
Deborah Neal Fisher. She edited the fucking Hangover.
Yeah,
she's a good editor.
Well-cut movie.
Yeah, she's a really good editor. Let's see. I'm looking at her IMDb right now. I'll start from editing, like around that time.
A lot of editing in comedy is nailing the timing and the pace and the cadence of the jokes.
Okay. She edited
The Hangover is well done.
Just you wait. She edited the first Austin Powers, the second Austin Powers. She didn't edit the third. She edited The Hangover. She edited Due Date. She edited all the Hangover movies, actually. So she's edited some stinkers, but like that's not
a strong pedigree of comedy. This is not someone's first round.
So that's the thing. Yeah, she's edited. She edited National Security as well. It's like, yeah, she's edited some bad movies, but the fact that she edited the first two Austin Powers and The Hangover and Due Date, like, I'm saying, you've edited some fucking great comedies.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but like, or I agree with you that like, how the fuck did she, like, this is obviously like, you know, before, but like, I feel like they probably thought like, we got an edit, you know, it's like, they were probably thinking like, we got the editor of the Austin Powers movies.
Yeah.
But like, oh, I'm sorry, this whole thing starts with the script. And the logic is not there. And yes, there's such a thing as just suspending your disbelief in comedy, but not if it's A, unsympathetic characters, which this has completely. B, if it's not fucking funny, which this is not funny.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe it's also just the time that we watch. You know, I don't know. This definitely feels like a movie of the time that it came out. Like, oh, we gotta save our best friend from the bad girl. That just feels dated too.
That's probably the best part about this movie is it is a weird time capsule to pre 9/11 America.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's the only thing I really like about it. And one of the things I read when Jason Biggs was doing promo for it, he said some line that I came across a bunch where he was like, yeah, a lot of people will deal with this. You know, their friend dates a horrible woman. This is a universal problem.
He goes, this is a universal problem, right?
And I'm like, look, dude, I really respect the commitment to like, you have to promote this movie. And I don't even know that he knew it was a piece of shit at the time, because
I actually have a theory on that.
I saw it in the theater. I don't know.
So
I don't know.
I have a theory on that. I remember this vividly, and this is a weird fucking memory. So this was around the time of MTV TRL, MTV Spring Break or whatever. And so this came out in February, and that was around the time of like winter break. Not quite spring break, but winter break. But MTV was doing something. I remember this. It was a TRL. It was in some warm climate place, like a Florida or something. Yeah. So maybe it was spring break and it was just early, or maybe it was like winter break. I don't know.
They used to do a lot of Cancun too, yeah.
That's probably where it was, Cancun. And they were, you know, they had Jason Biggs and Amanda Detmer and Jack Black and they had them all on to promote it. And I'll never forget, like, whoever was the moderator. All I remember is Jason Biggs, like the moderator goes like, yeah, so it opens on Friday. Like, what do we think? Or, you know, like, you guys think it's going to be a hit or something like that? And Jason Biggs just goes, yeah. And with his microphone and to the crowd, he goes, yeah, I mean, you guys going to go see it? And the way that and I'll never forget it, even as a 12-year-old, I was like,
it was off.
Something was off. I was like, he's not into this. There's something. He's not feeling it. Like, he probably knew it was a turd. I feel like they probably, again, all these actors that are in it are good. I mean, Arlie Ermy, come on. Like,
he's very specific as an actor. I'm not ready to jump on board with Arlie Ermy is good.
But you're probably right.
It's stunt casting to have him in this.
But he's so iconic in Full Metal Jacket and Toy Story that you're like, oh man. But
yeah, I know, but that he has one card to play when it's right in those two instances.
Crazy. Yeah,
unreplaceable.
So I could tell at that age, like, it was weird. I don't know. I'm not trying to give myself too much credit here, but I could tell I was like, this movie's not going to do well, and then it didn't. I think it barely made its budget. Like, I think it cost $22 million and made 26 worldwide or something.
This is a movie that looks like it costs about $13. The entire film
looks like shit.
It takes place on a soundstage. Like, that is where it takes place. Like, they have like
Yeah.
two exterior shots that do nothing. You get that
And here's the
generic
thing,
Seattle, Vancouver.
it's
vibe
easy to
that's it.
drag Dennis Dugan through the mud, the director, because he's made a bunch of Adam Sandler movies, but like, I'm sorry, he's made good movies. Happy Gilmore and Big Daddy are good movies. I don't care what anybody says.
God,
Those movies are fucking funny.
This episode is full of takes that I'm not ready to endorse.
That's fine. These are my takes.
But
like,
I say is, what I'll tell you is like that is a comedy pedigree. Like he should know how to direct and execute a comedy film.
Why it's the
I
script.
agree
That's
that
why
the
it's
script is terrible.
The script is terrible. It's not the worst idea in the world, but this execution of it is horrible. The script execution of it is horrible.
It's terrible.
Again, no one has logic, and you're not sympathetic towards anybody. That's it. It's pretty simple. Maybe
Jack Black. That's about it.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, he
does have a little awakening about like understanding that he's gay.
Yeah.
Which even in a movie where there's some gay jokes that are just sign of the times type taste.
Right.
It actually isn't that mean.
I was going to say it's not quite as mean as you might fear. But here's the problem is in the scene when he's crying and he's like, I'm gay. He's good in that scene because he's being sincere, but I remember watching that with my 8th grade friends and everybody's like dying laughing because it's like, so I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like played for laughs because I don't think like, I mean, Jack Black is a good actor. He's treating it real. Yeah. But it's like to the demographic at that time, they're like, oh yeah, he's gay and like laughing. Also, and so
the odds of someone finding out that they're gay at like age 25 or so would be, I would think, pretty low. Not coming out, but like finding out.
There was, I'll speaking of that, I literally had one laugh in this movie. One.
Okay.
And it was at the very end, right when when Darren and Sanity are kissing and Wayne and Judith are kissing. And then Jack Black, JD, comes in with the coach and he's holding him. And the coach says, when are you going to shack up with someone? Or when are you going to get married? And he's like, actually, I'm not. I'm gay. And the coach says, me too. The way that Jack Black delivers the next line when he goes, really? It's so like matter of fact and practical that it just made me laugh. Like it just kind of caught me off guard because it was unlike the rest of his performance, like completely. But it still made sense for his character because he's like, really? Oh yeah, this is gonna work for us. Like
this was prime Jack Black. This was right when like Tenacious D had their big album.
Right after High Fidelity, right before School of Rock.
Yep. Yeah. This was really a prime time for Jack Black. And I haven't really thought about him a lot as an artist at all. I don't know. I just don't think about Jack Black that often. But to 13-year-old me that saw this, I guess I was 12. I wasn't even 13 at the time. That was the sweet spot. Like that. Jack Black and his jokes and quoting his stupid shit and the company yeehaw and all that stuff was like, I could not.
Is that a Neil Diamond line though?
I have no fucking idea.
Because I feel like I heard it in the closing song.
I can't tell, and I don't care enough to find out if that's a Neil Diamond or a Jack.
Yeah, the Neil Diamond stuff just is so. There's no point. It's just random.
It's kind of funny. It's weird. It's almost a joke. It's weird for people to be obsessed with Neil Diamond who are young. That is kind of weird. But it never goes anywhere.
But there's no point. It's not like
there is no point.
That's the issue. When you're doing a joke like that, and they're obsessed with Neil Diamond, it's like, okay, why? Like, what's the significance here? That feels like the screenwriter is just being like, we just want to put this in here because we think it's funny, but there's no logic to it. Again, there's no logic to this movie.
There's a little bit because Steve Zahn was born at a Neil Diamond concert. There's a little that's in there.
That's true.
It's not. I don't like it, but that's in there.
That's true. That's in there. You're right.
I have way more issue with stuff like having like the joke about him having to eat Amanda Pete's pussy and then jerk off alone, immediately followed by a scene where she says no more sex to him.
Yeah.
After she's established she doesn't want to have sex.
Right.
That doesn't play at all.
Well, not only that, just doesn't play. It just goes back to like none of this makes any fucking sense.
Yeah.
Like Judith, why are you with this guy if you don't even want to have sex with him or whatever? And like like it sounds like you make more money than he does, so it's just like what's the reasoning here? And if she's not having sex with you and she's like not very nice to you, to Darren, why the fuck are you? It just, again,
I agree,
nothing makes any sense. You can find you can poke holes. You
don't have to
in
poke
this.
holes.
You don't, right? I was just gonna, sorry,
you
I was
don't
looking
have
for
to.
the right words. You don't have to, because they're all in there.
It really feels like a first draft script.
Yes,
it feels like something that you write early on in film school, and you think you've written something, and then you bring it to class, and everyone's like, this isn't a thing. Like, there's just no motivation. There's no character. Everything's so thin.
Yeah, and there's no character development either.
It has the structure of a film with none of the payoff.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's a truly terrible movie. Again, it might be the worst movie I've ever seen. That's okay. So that's why my reaction was so strong, is because yes, I remember laughing as a kid, and when I went to put this on, I was like, this will be like maybe at least enjoyable, and it wasn't even that. Like it was a chore to sit through.
I thought maybe there'd be some stuff that had aged well that maybe I'd forgotten about.
Right.
Because there was a time when I was obsessed with this movie. Like I really liked it. There's nothing here. I mean, it is barren. I will link to this article because it's very good. This was on Medium. This is from Bree Rohde, who I don't know her as an author at all, but she describes herself as a professional hate watcher. She
Nice.
wrote a very good article. It's an 11-minute read. It's entitled "The Worst Movie of This Century Happened in 2001 and No One Remembers It." And she really does a great job articulating kind of the same thing we're talking about. She remembers liking it, watching it recently and being like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, what the fuck happened? And
even to the point where she's like, how has this not been reckoned with?
Right.
Like, how is the outright misogyny and all the bad gay jokes and stuff? How is
terrible,
been called out upon the cast of like, you were in this thing that is
dude, it's fucking mean-spirited. That's the other issue too, is like, again, I know that I said Jack Black is like, in that scene when he's coming out, he's playing, he's sincere, but it's clearly, I'm going to amend what I said earlier. It is played for laughs. I mean, like, I don't think I wouldn't put it on him, but I would say that like just the fact that that's a big part of the script, it's like, and who they're trying to get to go get to see this movie, 13-year-old boys, like, of course it's played for laughs, and that's not right.
Well, a better gay joke that is played out from almost the same era is the ones from the 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, right.
Which are better. But
one, like the how I know you're gay bit?
Yes, that's funny.
See, I gotta be honest, I never found that hilarious, and I still don't. Again, I don't necessarily find it offensive, at least not to me, but I feel like it's just, I don't know, I just never found that. I find stuff like that to be a little, and maybe it's the 2021 lens that I have now, I find it to just be a little cheap and easy.
It's definitely cheap.
That's what I mean. Like because that's the thing with 4-Year-Old Virgin, is like there are so many fucking hilarious jokes in that movie, and that one just felt like, okay, you're probably doing this to try and like broaden your audience, which I understand, but like whenever I've rewatched that movie, and it holds up very well, I'm just like, you don't need this bit. Like everything else is so funny. But I understand what you're saying. It's at the very least, it's more intelligent because they're like, because of the references that they're doing, like you macrameed a pair of jean shorts.
It's ridiculous.
That's so specific, right?
And that's why I don't find those jokes to be mean, because they're clearly on their face ridiculous.
Yeah, they're ad-libbing and like they're right.
There was a time when gay jokes were more accepted. I'm glad we're past it. But say
me too.
You like sucking dick is not a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke.
It's just not a joke.
Right.
And I think one of the things in that article that you point out is that some of these lines have the cadence of jokes with no payoff.
Right.
You just never get that.
There's literally, that's a perfect way to put it. A cadence of jokes, but there's no payoff. It's not a punchline.
Yeah.
So two last quick things before we move on to Hannibal. Speaking of Hannibal, did you catch the Hannibal Lecter reference in Saving Silverman?
Yes, I did.
When he says, dude, she's like Hannibal Lecter, I was like, whoa, that's weird, because they came out on the same day. The other thing that I guess you could say that this is the only thing I liked in the movie, even though I said that there was one part that made me laugh, which I guess you could say there's two things. But the only other thing that I liked, I swear to God, was the very end, right as the end credits came up. I thought the timing of directed by Dennis Dugan to the beat of the bass and the drum and the Neil Diamond song was like good. Meaning like, okay, at least they had some creativity to do that. But that's literally it.
That takes place right after they broke out of prison with no consequences.
Yes, yeah. I'm talking about like when they're all on stage together,
yeah.
and it's like dun dun sing, and like right as the dun dun, it's directed by Dennis Dugan, and I was like, well, that was well done. But yeah, that movie gets 0 stars, an F. Like it is not. Oh my God, is it not still good?
It's hard to watch. I like movies that aren't necessarily described as good.
Right, me too.
There is nothing here. Nothing
here. And you okay? So if someone hears this and says, "Well, what about Tommy Wiseau's The Room?" That movie's fucking hilarious.
That movie is made from a guy who is not living in the same reality as us.
Yes. Yeah.
That is outsider art. This is not.
This is made by a fucking studio for 20 plus $20 million, and it's made by people who have made good shit. All of them have made good shit before, and been in good movies before and after. Actually, that's why. And again, it goes to your point of like, holy shit, I love this as a kid. What the fuck was I thinking?
I don't know. I mean, maybe you go to the movies on a given weekend because there's nothing to do because you're 12.
Right.
You can only get
I saw The Hot Chick with Rob Schneider in theaters. Like, because it's just like, oh, let's go see it. It's funny,
And it's rated PG-13. So like it's the movie you can see that weekend, and that's what you end up seeing. And then that influences your taste for a while, which gets back to one of the things that the older I get, the more and more I believe is that you actually have no control over your life or the things that shape your taste, or at least you have way less than
it's becoming clearer. So let's talk about Hannibal. Did you see this? When was the first time you saw this?
Saw this not when it came out. This was a big deal movie. I remember it coming out. I very vividly remember my 7th grade social studies teacher like giving a very in-depth summary of having seen this movie, I think opening weekend, up to and including describing the kills.
Oh, I
knew
for
about
this movie, but
scene well in advance.
I knew about the Ray Liotta scene just from. You'll laugh when you hear this. I knew about it because I had a Mad magazine from this time period that had that scene in there, just as a joke. Which is really funny. But I know the whole teacher describing thing, that's classic. I didn't have that with this movie, but
we're
I
12
remember
years old. We're fucking 12 years old.
Okay, so my dad did that for me with The Sixth Sense because I was too young to see it, but I desperately wanted, what's this big twist? And I so regret it. And he, to his credit, he was like, "Are you sure you want me to tell you?" And I'm like, yes, because I was 10 and there was like no way they were gonna let me see it. And I fucking wish I didn't, because then that movie would have blown my mind.
I saw that movie on VHS at a sleepover with no context. It was, we're going to watch a movie.
I am so jealous. Did it blow your mind?
I had no idea a movie could do that.
Oh my God.
It may have set me on a path of just loving horror movies, because
you have no idea the jealousy that's in my heart right now.
Look,
of you.
I've grown up to be someone who doesn't even believe in spoilers. But that was a pure experience.
Dude, so that's the thing. That movie not only holds up, it still was great when I watch it. We should. Yeah, it still is great when you watch it, but fuck, man, I really wish I didn't know that ending. I really wish. And I remember begging my dad to tell me, and,
I'd never heard of it. It was like, I'm just going to watch a movie about this kid. Cool.
Dude.
It was nice.
But you know what though? I also have a feeling that had I seen that movie when I was 10, I just would have been confused. I guarantee you I would have walked out of the movie just been like, what? Like, wait, what that? Like, what? I just would have been really confused.
You may not have grasped the twist. I mean, I know I saw it when I was living in Detroit, so I could have been no older than 11.
Yeah. If I saw that movie when I was like 13 or 14 with no context, my head would have exploded.
I mean, I remember understanding it. Even if you didn't understand the twist, the horror moments in that movie are very good. I mean,
very scary. Yeah, see, okay, so I think that's why it still really stuck with me, because my dad, he only told me that, and all the other shit, I was like terrified.
Yeah.
All the other shit, I was really scared. Hang on, my wife just walked in. I just want to know. Zoe just walked in the room. Have you seen The Sixth Sense? Okay, you've seen it. All right. Because I was gonna say, if you haven't, oh my god. And Zoe's pointing to our dog, saying he hasn't seen it.
I gotta give him a pure experience.
We gotta sit Bill down and just be like, okay, this is gonna blow your mind. So yeah, Hannibal. I didn't see it. You're gonna find this nuts. I did not see it until this week when I watched it.
Oh, that's very interesting. I
had not seen it. Okay. I've seen Silence of the Lambs. I remember it, but I haven't watched it in a long time. Probably not since like during the time of college, but I don't think I watched it. I think I watched it at home in Connecticut, but it was when I was in college. It's a great movie. I remember loving it, but I had never seen this. But weirdly enough, the very last scene of Hannibal on the plane with the kid, I had definitely seen that before.
Interesting.
I had definitely seen that. I remembered it vividly. I remember like as soon as he has the Dean and DeLuca thing, I remember like I was like, oh yeah, and the kid's gonna ask to taste the brain, and which is nuts. But so
I know this was on HBO heavy rotation. I think that's where I first saw it.
Yes, that might have been where I saw that scene. Actually,
yeah, that would make sense. Like you tune into Curb Your Enthusiasm, catch the end.
Right.
But yeah, it was weird. I remember this movie was a very big deal. I don't know when I first saw Silence of the Lambs, but I'm very well versed in Silence of the Lambs. I really love that movie. I revisit it all the time.
It's been way too long. I need to revisit it.
We could do a show on that because I could just talk about that movie. But I've always liked this movie. I haven't watched it in a bit. I'm a big time Ridley Scott fan.
Me too.
And I know that he usually gets criticized for being a very talented visual stylist, and that's it. And not someone who cares too much about actors or performances or really even plot.
Yeah.
Which to me, that's my wavelength, baby. Visual shit, costumes, awesome.
You care about that more than
acting, plot, character. That's all secondary to me.
So what is it that makes that secondary to you? What do you think that is?
I think I'm just a very visually oriented person. And so good visuals, good makeup, special effects, costumes, cinematography are gonna trump a lot of things for me. So to watch Saving Silverman and Hannibal back to back was like fucking whiplash in terms of staging, just how it looks.
Yeah, when you're going from like,
oh my God,
a guaranteed piece of shit to one of the greatest filmmakers to ever do it.
Yeah, you're basically going from a single camera sitcom on a soundstage to some gorgeous cinematography on location with Hannibal.
Pretty much.
So that's enough weird stuff. Tell me how was your first viewing of this? What were your thoughts?
Really quickly, I just want to touch on you talking about that you're a visual guy. I find that really interesting because I'm a visual learner, but yet the stuff that I need for movies is story and character. At least on the first viewing, I need to like be entertained and I need to be involved and I need to care. And then it's with subsequent viewings that I pick up on, oh, that's a great shot that they did. I love that they framed it that way. And oh, I love that little music cue, whatever that is. I mean, I'll still notice that stuff on first viewings as well, but it's interesting. So like, I find it weird that like I'm a visual learner and yet I say like, oh, I need that the story and character stuff. And yet you also call yourself visual learner,
but you're so much more emotional.
That is true. I'm a very emotional guy. Yeah, I do need that hook.
And more so than.
But you're an emotional guy too. I mean, well, maybe not as,
of the two of us, you're going to.
I'm definitely more. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so my first viewing experience with this, I gotta say, I liked the first half a lot better than the second.
Really interesting. Okay.
I really did, and I know that's weird because I know that everyone's waiting for the big payoff with Clarice and Hannibal to meet. But the reason I liked the first half better is because there was such a great exercise in tension.
Mhm.
Like there were several scenes when you thought Hannibal was going to kill that Italian inspector,
Yeah,
and then he didn't. And then
Yeah.
eventually he did, but like you thought that was going to happen, and then it didn't. So it really kept me on my toes. Like, oh shit, when's that going to happen? And then when Clarice finally calls him and is like, "You don't know who you're dealing with."
Yeah, great.
That was great. But then when they're doing the when he's doing the final slideshow and he comes and puts his hand on his shoulder, I was like, okay, it's over. This is the scene when it's going to happen. And then it happens in a very graphic way.
Pays right off, baby.
It does pay off. It's a very fucking bloody movie. And it's interesting because the blood used in it it's funny. It's like
practical.
It's practical, but it's also it's a little bit more spare than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it still is very graphic when you see it and when you see shit.
It's a very good balance because it's not a blood-soaked movie. There is some restraint. There's so much more time that isn't violent. There's so much buildup to the Italian inspector, Pazzi, getting killed. It's very good in how it does that. It builds tension. I mean, this is the guy that did Alien. I mean, there's not that much blood in Alien, and yet you can't sleep when you see that shit.
Yeah, and when the blood does, and when you do see the blood, it's like,
whoa.
It's fucking graphic and terrifying.
So that balance is very good, and that's the balance of a veteran filmmaker who understands tension and can draw that out and hit you in the fucking face with it.
Yeah, and I also liked the way he lit Hannibal in certain scenes, specifically in the scene when the inspector comes to his place and there's the half streak of light on Hannibal's face as he's talking to him. And I love because that shows like the duality of who he's talking to, number one. And number two, it shows that Hannibal's maybe starting to come out of his from behind the mask a little bit, and it makes you think, is this a scene where it's going to happen?
And
he puts on the gloves and then it doesn't happen, and you're like,
which is awesome. And you know, he in that letter to Clarice, he says something like, it's time for my emergence back in public life, and you're like, it's just a million different things. The way he describes the Pazzi guy's family lineage, it builds, it lays a lot of stones and then pays off pretty great.
Before I give my opinion on it, I just want to know, did you, in any of your research or whatever, if you did research or didn't, whatever, or whatever, I'm doing
research.
That's true. You do more than me, but I found it very interesting that Ridley Scott directed this. Like, it's a big fucking sequel.
Yeah.
And I feel like, it's a big sequel, but like
was
the
on
fact that
fire.
He was on fire. So, I mean, first of all, they must have offered him like everything under the sun.
Yes, 100%.
And I guess I was just kind of like, I guess I was surprised that he directed it, only because it feels like when a movie this big comes out, it feels like you're either going to get Jonathan Demme, the original director, or you're going to get someone who's like, you know, a big name, but not at Ridley Scott. Like, he was just nominated. He had been nominated for an Oscar at that point. Like, that's a big get. So I'm just curious, did you find as to like how they got him?
I didn't, but
because I couldn't either. It just sounds like he just like was in, you know.
It may have been, you know, this was right after Gladiator, which was just a huge hit, and a fun and violent and good R-rated movie in its own right. So he probably was on top of the world. He probably could have done anything he wanted to. So, you know, if they come to him in production for the sequel to a Best Picture winner, a beloved book franchise, with an iconic character,
right?
I mean, he probably could have dictated whatever movie he wanted to after that. Would be my guess.
You know what?
I didn't find anything specific.
I just found something.
Was I right on speculation? Because I will pat myself directly on the back.
What speculation? That Ridley Scott could do whatever he wanted?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's to be assumed. But so I'll get to that. But here's what I found. So, in April 1999, the LA Times reported that the budget for Hannibal could cost as much as $100 million, and that it was speculated that Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins would receive $15 million each, and that Jonathan Demme would receive $5 to $19 million. Jonathan Demme eventually declined because he found the material lurid and too gory. And
he was
in a 2010 documentary, when he was asked about it, he said Tom Harris, the author of Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal, as unpredictable as ever, took Clarice and Dr. Lecter's relationship in a direction that just didn't compute for me. and Clarice is drugged up and she's eating brains with him. And I just thought, I can't do this. So Dino De Laurentiis said of Demi's decision to decline, oh my God, he said, when the Pope dies, we create a new Pope. Good luck to Jonathan Demme. Goodbye. Jesus Christ, that is savage. And then he later said that Demme felt he could not make a sequel as good as Silence of the Lambs. Well, I agree with him on that.
Yeah, I think I mean, I haven't read the books, but I doubt that they are as intellectual as people think they are based on the strength of Silence of the Lambs. Everything I know about Thomas Harris in those books is that it's kind of a beach read series.
Well, yeah. And that brings us to Ridley Scott. So Dino De Laurentiis, the producer, went to visit Ridley Scott on the set of Gladiator, and he was like, "Oh, you should read Hannibal." And this was the book. This was like, when the book was coming out. And so then Gladiator became a huge hit, Oscar nominations, and wins and tons of money. And so then Dino went back to Ridley and asked if he wanted to direct it. And Ridley Scott actually first thought he was talking about the general, the historical figure from Carthage. And he goes, "Dino, I'm doing a Roman epic right now. I don't want to do elephants coming over the Alps next, old boy." But then he was like, "No, I'm talking about the sequel to Silence of the Lambs." And he read the manuscript. Ridley Scott read the manuscript in 4 sittings within a week. And he thought it was like a symphony. He said, "I haven't read anything so fast since The Godfather. It was so rich in all kinds of ways." And apparently the ending of the novel, which I didn't know this, I just learned this just now. The ending of the novel has Hannibal and Clarice becoming lovers.
I knew that. Yes.
I did not know that. So Scott didn't want to do that. He said, Ridley Scott didn't want to do that. He said, "I couldn't take the quantum leap emotionally on behalf of Starling. Certainly on behalf of Hannibal, I'm sure that's been in the back of his mind for a number of years, but for Starling, no." I think that is more character insight than I would have expected from him, to be honest. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. And he also said, the last thing I'll say, he didn't find the book believable after the opera scene, which became like a vampire movie. Thomas Harris gave Ridley permission to change the ending, which obviously he did. But it's so interesting. After the opera scene, that's basically like when things start to get really gory.
Oh, that's when it picks up. I mean,
right. And it's interesting because, like,
it's a switch. It's a real switch. I like both halves of the film. I think they're both very good, but it's a huge tonal shift.
It is a big tonal shift, but it's funny to me that really didn't like that in the book, but then I feel like that's exactly what happened in the movie.
It is. I mean, he clearly couldn't get far enough away from that.
Right.
And that's actually a good point. It does play out like a vampire story. It really does remind me of like Dracula, especially with the main villain, obviously eating his victims, and specifically locking in on a female. But that's very old school.
Right. And the biggest difference I feel like between this and the Silence of the Lambs, and again, it's been years since I've seen Silence, but Silence of the Lambs is a psychological thriller, and the whole central relationship of the movie is Clarice and Hannibal. And this movie is like a fucking espionage chase movie, I think.
Yeah, it is. And it has a weird action scene in the beginning.
Yeah.
That is like completely out of another film and actually feels like a Tony Scott film.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels like a Tony Scott movie in the beginning for sure. And then it's this chase movie, and then it turns into, like a vampire type thing.
So I agree with you to an extent. I mean, you will always be able to find someone to debate whether or not Silence of the Lambs is a horror film. I think it is technically a procedural.
That's a good way to look at it.
But I would, in that debate, I'm going to land on it is a horror film because, as we've established, I have a broad definition of what that is. And I also think it's important that we classify a Best Picture winner as a horror film, given how rare that is.
Yeah, it never fucking happens. I don't think it's happened since 30
it
years.
Never fucking happens.
And by the way, one of my favorite lines in movie history. Excuse me. Here we go.
Get into it.
Oh wait, wasn't she a great big fat person?
It's one of my favorite lines in cinema history. And then Jodie Foster's response, she goes, "Yeah, she was a big girl."
I had no idea you had a Ted Levine in you. Holy shit, that's great. Oh my God.
Ted Levine he's
wonderful. He's a wonderful actor.
He was
I
the
love
best
Ted
part
Levine.
of, and maybe the only good thing about Jurassic World 2.
I
The
didn't
fact
even
that he
see
was
that.
in it, I was like, that's terrific.
I mean, honestly, I have no desire to see that movie, except that now I know Ted Levine is in it, and I love Ted Levine.
He's pretty
So
good
that's
too,
amazing.
and he
Of
has
course
he's got some good moments.
Does he take a good death? You got to kill Ted Levine. If
Do you want me to spoil it?
Yeah, of course.
He has the best death in the movie.
You got to kill Levine.
He does. He has the best death in the movie, easily. And you're right. You have to.
Got to.
But so yeah, I feel like this movie was a little all over the place.
100%.
And it's funny. I definitely found myself really intrigued in the first half, but I gotta be honest, it was losing me in the second half. I kind of agree with what Jonathan Demme's. Jonathan Demme's reasons for not directing it are the same reasons why I didn't love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it. Yeah, I like the eating brain stuff and like the fact that she's drugged. That last dinner scene, it feels like a fucking cartoon. Like everyone's just like completely different. It's really weird. And I just wasn't really buying it. It wasn't really for me. I understand people are like, I'm all in, and I was just starting to kind of pull back. And I also just kind of felt like once it turned into, this different, like once he killed the Italian inspector, like I almost wish that like that was the whole movie and Clarice was trying to like help him from afar, and then he kills him, and then like
that would be interesting. I love that guy. His name is Giancarlo Giannini. He looks like actor. Yeah, he looks like he actively didn't sleep for that movie. It looks like he's never slept. I love how he looks. And shout out to my photographs so well.
Shout out to my friend Ajay Naidu, the guy he plays Samir in Office Space. He's one of the forensic people who smells the letter.
He's a friend of yours?
Yeah, we made a short film called Uncle together. He's one of the sweetest people. He's a world-class actor, and he's just so fucking cool. And he taught me about apple cider vinegar and turmeric for my stomach. Nice. Because we were shooting this short, and I was so stressed out because we had to simulate a traffic jam over like 2 days. And I was like, fuck, how are we going to, it was like $7,000. We had no money. And he was like, he was like, here, this will help your stomach. Cause I was like having like diarrhea and stuff.
Hey, you're telling he
stayed at our house. He stayed right next door in the guest room. We put him up here. Yeah. He's one of the nicest guys. We talked about Office Space. He told me he actually said that he was like, we should get him on the podcast. Maybe he would do it.
I love Office Space. I love him in it. And actually, I recognize him. I didn't know his name, but I recognized him immediately on this watch of Hannibal and was excited to see him. And he was great. He's tone perfect.
Yeah, he's awesome, dude.
One day
you should watch. Have you watched The West Wing? He's in season 3 episode. It's like the 9/11 episode, or like one of them after. He's so good. He's got so much range, and he's amazing. And then we talked a lot about Office Space, and we talked about like the scene where they're planning the whole fucking the virus thing. Mm-hmm. He talked about how he like, I guess Mike Judge like let him come up with a shot or whatever, and he came up with the overhead shot of like when the chairs spin and they pass the floppy disk, and I was like, that's one of the best shots in the movie, man.
That is one of the best shots. It's so unnecessary.
He's awesome. He's a great guy. I don't think he'll ever listen to this, but if he does,
we got to get him on for Office Space, because that
I can shoot him a text. I mean, he has a kid, and he might be busy, but I'll see what I can do. He's a terrific guy.
Amazing.
But okay, so the notes that I took, just want to say, I forget how this line came up, but first of all, Gary Oldman's makeup, Jesus Christ.
I love Gary Oldman. Top 2 actors.
I know you do.
He's uncredited here, which is very strange.
Yeah, really weird.
His
unrecognizable.
Makeup is amazing.
It's incredible. Time. I mean, it does look like your face got eaten. Like they did a good job, but I couldn't help but like laugh sometimes because I was just like, what the, like, especially when he's wearing sunglasses and he's like, ha, ha, ha. Like,
the sunglasses is funny. He's got a geriatric smoothness to him that is very real.
And he sounds a lot like Jim Carrey in The Grinch.
Big time.
He really does.
It seems like he's actively doing it.
Yeah. And then the line where he says, nobody beats the Riz, which I forget how that came. I mean, obviously we know the reference, but like, whatever that was is interesting. I thought there was a very interesting style to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of the the lighting and the long lenses and stuff. I absolutely hated the slow motion, like kind of whatever that. Too. effect is.
It's the choppy slow-mo. It's not the frame doubling slow-mo that we've been spoiled with since 300 came out. But if you go back and actually look at some stuff from the same time period, including Gladiator, there's a decent amount of that. And I hate that as well.
There's some of it in the Fast and the Furious. I remember it looks like shit. I don't get it.
Terrible. I don't know why they went with that, other than maybe it could have been that they were right on the beginning of like doing digital intermediary stuff there, and they just didn't have the ability to frame double to smooth that out. It looks like shit.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, man, I mean, you know, this must have been wild to see like on back in theaters, because I'm sure there were a lot of audible reactions to a lot of this gore. And also at the time that it came out, it was the biggest R-rated opening weekend ever. Huge. It was 58 million at the time, which is like, honestly, like that's still one of the bigger ones. I mean, R-rated movies, there is a limit to those audiences. I mean, obviously Deadpool showed that you can cross, you know, 100 million. Joker got close, but like, you know, this must have been really insane to see in theaters with a crowd, and just like the eating of the brain, and just, you know, Ray Liotta, like, that's fucking, I love Ray Liotta. He's great.
Casting him here was a master stroke. I don't know why he's in this movie, and I
love that he and Clarice fucked, and he's like, I wouldn't mind having you right now, or something like that. Jesus. But
his voice with that accent in his eyes, his blue eyes.
Yeah.
I hate that he hasn't had the career that maybe he should have.
I know what you mean, but you know what?
I like him.
I know what you mean, but I feel like he is more than okay. Like, dude, he was the lead in Goodfellas. Like, I know what you mean, but he's fucking amazing in that movie. He should have been nominated for an Oscar for that. He might have been. If he wasn't, that's insane. But
I respect anyone who comes from the Robert Davi / Edward James Olmos school of moon-faced actors. And he actually doesn't look that bad here. Like, they smooth him out a little bit, but he is a craggy man, and I love it.
Yeah. I saw him at Sundance. I've been to Sundance twice. When I was there in college in 2011, I saw him on Main Street. He's big. He's a tall guy. He's like 6'3" or something. Yeah.
That's my favorite height.
Because that's your height.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, man, so for me, okay, here's what I'm gonna do for Hannibal. Since it really descends into just like ridiculousness for me, I can't say it's still good, but I can easily say that if you want to have a weekend at the movies with these two, watch Hannibal. Like, it's a quality. Saving Silverman makes Hannibal look like fucking Seven Samurai. Like, it makes it look like a goddamn masterpiece.
It does.
And again, it's an entertaining movie. I wasn't bored. I was just really losing interest in the second half, especially in the last like 30 minutes. I was just like, what the fuck? And I don't know. And also, it's like, it kind of just cuts from him in Italy to him in Virginia.
That does deserve more explanation.
Like, where? Like, how did he get there? And
pre 9/11.
Right. That's okay. That's fair. But then he's also on the plane, and it's like, so he's fine again. Like, if he's this fucking wanted guy, like, wouldn't people know what he looks like? Again, I guess you're right. Pre 9/11. I guess I'm not.
9/11.
I guess I'm underestimating how easy it was to, eat people and get away with it. But
clearly not the world we're in now. But
right. Yeah.
That is a little ridiculous. Now that scans is just ridiculous. Like, that would have to be addressed if you made that movie today, or you'd have to set it in 2001. And then have a character say out loud, like, oh, airport security, it's a joke. You get through it in 2 seconds. Not like anyone has ever flown one of these things into a building or something.
Right.
I think that's a fine opinion. I like Hannibal. I'll defend it. I really like Ridley Scott. I love him too.
Love Julianne Moore too, by the way.
I do too. I think she's a little underutilized.
The fact that it was Jodie Foster didn't bother me. That's not one of the reasons why I don't love the movie.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either.
Also, she's one of my first crushes as a kid. The Lost World. I was really into her.
It's a fun movie. I think.
It's definitely a fun movie.
I think you get a little fooled thinking that Silence of the Lambs is a little more high art. Whereas,
definitely. But again, the first half of Hannibal is a really fun thriller, like a really enjoyable and involving. At least that's my opinion. I think
agree.
once Hannibal gets to the States, and there's that big fucking plot hole, and then the whole scene at Union Station. I honestly like forget why that's even there. Like, why is he on the phone with her again? What's he trying to do? Because I know she's trying to catch him, I guess. But like,
he's always playing with her. I mean, their relationship is him
right.
always playing games with her.
Right, but then then he gets captured just like, and we know he's gonna escape, and he does.
Of course,
and then
he loves escaping.
I just feel like there's stuff in that movie that doesn't need to be there.
I think you're going to always run into a problem where you have like a really great, very layered, very textured movie in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
And I think you always remember Silence of the Lambs as a movie about Hannibal. He is in the movie for 16 minutes. Like, it is one of the shorter appearances of a memorable character.
I definitely need to rewatch the movie.
So
I didn't even remember that.
That movie is not about him. It is about a woman in a man's world trying to solve a heinous crime who gets a little tangled up with this guy who's very intriguing.
Yeah, and he becomes obsessed with her.
This movie is a sequel to that movie where he's now the title character.
Yeah.
I love the marriage of pulpy violence and weird stuff with like artistic tendencies, interesting filmmaking. I mean, there's one shot where the inspector's on the phone that is framed in this like big arch outside. He's on a payphone. That is just beautiful to see.
Yeah, I remember that shot. It's a good shot.
The filmmaking on display here is very good, and I like that marriage between the high art and the pulpy, more base level horror stuff. What I really like is that we get to catch up with Hannibal and just see what he's up to, and of course he's into weird art and stalking people and eating them, like the two things he loves. And that to me, it's fun. I mean, like, I think you come to this movie maybe expecting a serious tone, because there's not much that's funny about Silence of the Lambs, at least not on the initial viewing.
Right.
Until you
not at all.
Unless line readings.
Yeah, that stuff is funny, but that took time. Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs is a pretty hardcore movie.
But this, you're right. This has a little bit of knowingness to it. Like the line when he meets the inspector's wife, and she talks about, "Oh, have you been to New England?" And he said, "Oh, I've had a lot of nice meals there."
Yes,
which is great.
A lot of knowing shit.
Yeah,
that's a great line. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird putting this next to Silence of the Lambs, but I think this is a fun movie. And if you haven't seen it in a while, I'd say it's still good. Definitely worth a watch. Of the two, I mean,
yeah, dude, Saving Silverman should be fucking buried 6 feet under and never thought about again. Like, that movie is so bad. Just like, and again, no hard feelings toward anybody that made it or whatever. Like, I know people work hard, and I'm not trying to knock anybody, but holy shit, it doesn't fucking work. It's just terrible.
Yeah. My heart goes out to the editor, because at a certain point she had to know, I can't do this.
I can't save this.
I cannot save Silverman.
Yeah. Well, guess what, Deborah Neal Fisher? You don't have to. Yeah. You've done great work, and we all fucking know it. And I think that, it's fucked. I don't know. It's a really, like, it's a bad movie. It's terrible. Yeah. But no, I think even though I can't call Hannibal still good, I don't think it's bad, and I definitely would choose to see that. And it definitely brought me back to that very specific time. I remember I was in 6th grade, and I remember really well when both of these movies came out.
I do too. Very vividly.
Yeah, very vividly. And it's fun to revisit things that just bring you back to a specific time in your life that when they came out, even if you didn't, like, again, I didn't see Hannibal. But it was all around me. I remember those fucking posters. I remember the TV
Great
spots.
posters.
I remember reading Roger Ebert's review. I remember reading about the box office. Like, I remember the movie without even having seen it. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to finally see it in full. And I mean, again, Saving Silverman just really shocked me, because I at least was like, I'll get a couple of laughs in and enjoy and turn my brain off. But like, I was just so angry. Like, from like the very early on, I was like, this thing is terrible. So
it's bad. They're both streaming. You can go watch them if you want to.
They are.
But this was fun. What are we doing next?
Next week is J-Lo's album, her self-titled second album, J-Lo, which came out 20 years ago this year. We're super excited about it. Well, yeah, thanks a lot for listening, guys. We're excited to keep doing these for you. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you can. Subscribe as well. Subscribe on YouTube. Is it still good? You can email us at stillgoodshow@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at stillgoodshow and visit our website, stillgoodshow.com. For Bear Kennedy, I'm Andrew Carter. Good night.